Okay, fantastic. So, John, welcome back to our midweek study. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's okay, lovely to be here.
Yeah, it's been a year since you were with us last time when we were doing the All Creatures study. And this
hmm
time we have done poverty and riches during the season of creation. And it has been a very enriching journey for us. Pardon the pun. But yeah, we have a lot of questions that we formulated for you. So I'll put them in the chat so that they're there for everybody to see, and then we can just move through them one by one as we go. So yeah, the first question that we have is, did you struggle when you were composing the study Poverty and Riches with any of the content?
Um, I, I don't think so much struggle as it was a challenge. There's quite a few of these. I mean, I choose subjects that appeal, and obviously, the Methodist Church at the moment is quite hot on justice,
Mm.
and it kind of clicked with that. Also, I think we've had a short period in our own life where we had not a lot, which was kind of a consequence of our own decisions. And I think when you're struggling to heat the house and feed the kids, and you haven't even got enough fuel in the car to get you to church, it focuses the mind somewhat. And although that was only a short period, it's influenced our lives since over the last sort of 30 odd years. So, we are not in a situation like that anymore, but, you know, I still shop for the bargains and we still grow our own food and in our allotment plot and things like that. And how we spend our money is important to us as well. So it was it was quite interesting to look at the subject, but also with the knowledge that we had of you know having not a lot and then having sufficient, maybe even in excess. Um, that's on the money side of it, but I quite like the idea of splitting it between the life and the sort of physical life and the spiritual life. And what I did find was, or we both found, was that even though we were struggling to make ends meet, I didn't um, lessen our faith. If anything, it made you more reliant on God, and God provides, and people provide in their sharing, and I think that's an important thing, that there is a connection between the physical and the spiritual, um, and that you can't keep the two separate, because our spiritual life affects the way that we respond to things going on in the physical world. That's my theory, anyway.
Yeah, and all the more meaningful for having the lived experience of it. And yeah, thank you for sharing just a little taste of that with us and
It's
all
okay.
that was put into the study, because I really got the sense that it was meaningful for you.
hmm
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next question is, in sharing your wonderful resources with ministries across the globe, because obviously you're based in Wales and we've managed to access your resource from our home base of Brisbane, even though we have members also joining Holy Hermits Online from other places. But yeah, do you
hmm
have a favorite example of communities contributing to eradicating poverty and social inequality?
Um, I mean, there are lots doing that. I think what kind of informed me the most is we were away on a kind of retreat holiday thing, and got talking to some folk from the Methodist charity All We Can, which works quite a lot in Africa and places like that. Um, and I think it was a reality that it only takes a little to make a big difference. charities quite often throw a lot of things at people in the third world. You'll give them a flock of sheep or something like that, and think that's wonderful. But what they discovered was that the people, the recipients, don't actually consider the sheep to be theirs. They think they're just looking after them for somebody else, and that affects the way that they treat the animals and what they do with them. They didn't feel they were able to do this, that, or the other. Whereas if you give someone, to be take it down to the bare minimum, if you give someone a chicken, you get eggs from that. If they have an excess of eggs, they can sell the eggs, or they can hatch the eggs and get more chickens. And all of a sudden, within a space of time, you've got a village that has a good food supply. That's a very simple kind of thing, but it's empowering people to take control of their own life in a sense, and be in control of it. Because that's my chicken. Those are my eggs. I can, if I do this, if I do that, I haven't got to ask of somebody else. This is me doing this and helping my community. So that kind of, I think when we look at perhaps charities and stuff like that, I keep that in mind. What are they actually doing?
Mm.
And I mean, in this country, it's the growth of the food banks, which are everywhere. My wife helps out in the local one down the road from us, and it's not just a generosity of individuals, but it's a generosity of stores and wholesalers and stuff like that. And it's community based is great. Um, so yeah. But in every town, city, country, things happen in different ways. But that seems to be what's happening over here anyway. People are sharing food and resources. If we grow in excess on the plot, then the food bank gets a whole load of beans or something like that. And other people do that.
Yeah, fantastic. And very empowering to think that, yeah, it sometimes is the little things that can make the big difference rather than the big things.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah, and in that way, even a small amount of money, in a sense, goes a long way.
Mm.
If you're putting it into tiny projects that will grow, rather than thinking this is the way we do it in our country, therefore it's sure to work in Africa or wherever. And it doesn't always.
Mm. Yeah, very true. Well, the next question is a little bit on a what I would call an honorable side quest. It's sort of less of a question, more of a statement, but an invitation to reflect. We do have a future study interest in one of your other materials, which is on the Lord's Prayer. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the connection for us between that and this could be something to comment on. But yeah, for you, like that study, what was that one representing for you, the Lord's Prayer study?
I think it was just sitting down and thinking, what's the next one to do? And uh, I kind of look around to see what else is on the market, what other groups that write Bible studies are doing, and I occasionally get some inspiration from that. But I'd much rather just have a look through my thesaurus and have a look at groups of themes and stuff like that. But the Lord's Prayer covers so much. Um, there's a fair bit of the Christian life in there, isn't there? It's our worship, it's our praise, it's our asking for forgiveness. It's the doing the good and not the bad. It's all there in a very short prayer. If you're going to write a very short prayer that encompasses what we believe, then you couldn't do much better than that, really. So it seemed like a good one too. to have a go at. But it's a fair while since I wrote that one. So, but yeah, no, it's a weird thing. But when if I finish writing one, start another one, I kind of forget what I've done in that. So we're currently working through a couple of studies on the Psalms, which I wrote a couple of years ago with our own little online Bible group, and I'm fine with that because I've forgotten the questions I'd asked. So they're all new to me when I come to them. So that's great. I mean, I do go back occasionally and say, "Have I asked that question before?" But um, it's great. So
It's a
and it's
gift
nice.
that keeps giving.
Well, it's nice um, to look at things that maybe you haven't looked at in depth before. A bit like the Lord's Prayer, you know. But I mean, I love the Psalms, but I'd no real idea as to how they were organized or how they fit in with. You know, there's so many themes within them, and you know, various people wrote them, and you know, it's all interesting stuff and quite challenging.
Or maybe we'll have to put the Psalms on our list after the Lord's Prayer study. We'll have to come back around to the Psalms one. That'd be fun. We're doing a project, a wider project in our community called the Reader Project, where we're inviting members to find their favorite psalm and offer their voice to them in recordings we're putting out on YouTube. So
Oh, right.
that might be a really beautiful way of celebrating when we've got a little bit further into that ministry. I think we've got 4 or 5 at the moment, so we're building it gradually. Plenty more psalms to go.
Oh gosh, yeah. Some difficult ones.
Yep, absolutely. And hopefully we will be brave enough to still really engage with them, not shy away from the difficult parts. Yeah. Well, thank you for that, John. That gives us things to look forward to. The next question was around material. There was a little bit of interest in some of the Wesley Brothers hymns and wondered if that was something that you would like to consider on your list of possible future studies, or even if you did have any that we missed when we were having a little look through the pages.
Hmm. Well, I've done some studies, Advent studies with some of the carols in mind, but I haven't actually gone as far as I mean Charles Wesley. I actually looked it up. Charles Wesley wrote 6,500 over the course of his life. So yeah, that would be quite a lot of Bible studies. And some of them, I mean, yes, our hymn books tend to have a reasonable number, but I think our most recent updated modern book of worship still has 72. I'm saying about 10% of the hymns in it are Wesleyan, and some of them I just can't relate to because of the language. Even when you try updating the language, you know, I mean, I was brought up in an Anglican church, but then we've been around quite a few different denominations. So we belong to Baptist and Presbyterian, and then when we came to Wales, we settled in, or South Wales anyway. We settled into a Methodist church. But there's also a side of me that truly enjoys going to big Christian gatherings where there's a big worship band and hearing the modern worship. Well, maybe not quite the most modern worship, but I mean, my sort of worship thing like that would be back in the days of when Matt Redman's just started and Graham Kendrick and people like that. So yeah, I was looking kind of for my favourite Charles Wesley one, which would have to be over 1,000 tongues to sing. But that's the chorister in me as well, which loves that one. But there's a, you know, I would contrast that with Matt Redman's 10,000 Reasons song, which again I just thoroughly enjoy singing. But the over 1,000 tongues to sing is apparently written in commemoration of his renewal of the renewal of his faith. And when you look at the words, yeah, I can see that. But it's changed over the years. If you look up on Wiki, um, it gives you, I think, the original version, which is about 10 verses or more, 12 verses, small verses. And it's all being put together into the current version that we have in later days. But yeah, lovely. Like that.
Oh, that sounds like a really good study. I reckon we'd be interested in doing a lovely contrast between, yeah, A Thousand Tongues and A Thousand Reasons. So if you did feel like doing that, I think you'd have your biggest fans over here ready to.
Well, I could get away with the Wesley one because it's out of copyright, but Matt
Ah,
Redman's was still in copyright.
maybe you'd have to write to him.
Oh yeah,
Ask
yeah.
permission.
There.
I have
Could
to
mention it.
say,
I could
yeah,
mention it in passing, no doubt. Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great. Because I have to say, we're very emboldened at Holy Hermits Online just to reach out to anyone at any place in the world when we do encounter
Hmm.
their resources and enjoy them. And that's how we're having this conversation, because that's what we did when we did one of your first studies, which was A Glorious Whisper.
All right.
Yeah. So that was
Hmm.
the first one of yours that we did. So yeah, you never know. Conversations can lead to all sorts of places.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, the next question, it's great that we were just noticing, your journey through different denominations, that you grew up in the Anglican tradition and now have settled in
Hmm.
the Methodist Church. But there was interest in what the differences of practice are between Anglican and Methodist practices.
Um, well, I mean, purely from a governance point of view, the Methodist Church is very much lay-led. We don't have the layers of bishops and deans and all that kind of thing, archbishops. So we have a Methodist conference once a year. They elect a president and vice president, and they're there for a year, and then it changes again. I've been to conference a couple of times. Anyone from a church can apply to go to conference. So it's nice that people have an input and it feeds back very quickly. From the point of view of Sundays and worship, we have a Methodist worship book, a liturgy, which generally speaking, certainly in our circuit, we don't use, other than maybe for communion or maybe at Christmas time, Advent. Um, but um, but having said that, I'm a local preacher. Methodism relies very heavily on local preachers, which was set up by John Wesley back in the day um, when he was kind of falling out with the Anglican Church, and he wanted to take the gospel out to people. The idea is setting up a pulpit in a field or wherever, and then decided there had to be local preachers in local areas. So that's where I am. So I'm like looking at a service on Sunday. I'll have a theme from the readings, and then I sort my own prayers out, put the readings where I want them. I might do one sermon, a couple of mini reflections, but I carry the theme through the service. Um, so it is a liturgy. They're all liturgies, but they're not. That I mean, I can go into an Anglican church and I can remember the ordinary service liturgies from 60 years ago. um, I can still sing the Psalms, but we don't tend to. So it's kind of a little bit more. Uh, it's different. It's different, but it's not that different, to be honest. Except you haven't got a prayer book in front of you most of the time. So I think people drift in and out of Anglican and Methodist churches and, well, non-conformist churches anyway. And you don't notice a lot of difference really. Theology-wise, it's very similar. But other than that, things like communion. I mean, I'm authorised to give communion because we don't have enough ministers in the area. So the Methodism is relaxed about that. They'd rather we have communion back once a month. So um, if there aren't enough ministers in the area, then you can get someone authorised to take communion, which I don't think you can do in the Anglican setup. Certainly not over here, anyway. So yeah, that's about it, really.
Yeah, thanks, John. Well, nice to celebrate that there's more similarities than differences in many ways across
Oh gosh, yeah,
traditions.
yeah,
And yeah, I would say that would be the case for a lot of the Anglican communion around the world. Certainly, bishops do like licenses to be held for particular places, but we're very blessed in that in our diocese, our Archbishop is completely open to having guest teachers and preachers come from other places, as long as we have that communication from whoever their governing structure is that they've got some
right.
work
It's good.
practices. So yeah, which is lovely.
Hmm.
Um,
Mm.
which gives us a lot of freedom to invite guest teachers from all over the place. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Yeah, good.
So, next question is, and tell us as much or as little as you like, but we'd love to know what you're working on right now. If there's something that's bubbling away for you or is already underway.
Currently, it's on a theme of pilgrimage, um, and I'm kind of thinking it's probably a Lent theme, and I'm kind of hoping that I can get it written in time for when people start wanting their Lent studies. It's only notes at the moment, but I think it's looking at a few popular pilgrimage destinations, but then also looking maybe at the disciples' pilgrimage with Jesus, because quite a lot of pilgrimage are following where the disciples went or where Jesus went. So maybe contrast it with that. Maybe part of Jesus's own journey. I mean, what is a pilgrimage if not a journey? From the time from whenever really. I don't know. I mean, we were on holiday in northern Spain a few weeks back, and wherever we kind of went, the little villages and towns along the north Spanish coast, we came across the shell, the pilgrimage shell for the big pilgrimage walk, and I kind of I kind of got it going, I suppose. Yeah, we stumbled across pilgrimage sites in this country. There's a lovely one in North Wales, Holywell, and you go into this place, and the first thing that greets you is a rack of very old crutches and walking sticks that people have left. And then you go, there's like looks like an old Roman bath, but it was built many hundreds of years ago, and then a central kind of well with pillars around, and carved into the pillars are the thanks of the people from the 16th, 17th hundreds for finding healing in that place, and you just think, wow, it was second to Lourdes at the time. The king went there, and I'd only just stumbled across it. um, so why do people do pilgrimages? There's for loads of different reasons. So there's quite a lot going on in there.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
It'll be interesting to see how it comes out.
Yes, well, we will look forward to that as well then. Alrighty, next question is how does the church engage with the community in Wales and role of the church in relating with the wider community? So maybe specific to your church or community, but just in general, I think either would be great.
I think probably the same that happens anywhere. I mean, it depends on what the congregations are. I mean, the church we go to in Carmarthen is quite a disparate congregation. We come from quite a few miles away because it was the only kind of English Methodist church in the area. But people are involved with obviously with food banks. Quite a few of our churches do warm hubs in the winter where people can come. One of our churches do regular meals for school kids through the summer holidays when there's no free school meals going. Um, I mean, not specifically help. Not so much our involvement, I suppose, but our church is located in the centre of a town, and we host quite a few support groups for people. And yes, the place is rented out, which helps us, but we've got groups helping people just coming out of prison. We've got groups helping people with arthritis, and there's a whole range of kind of support groups and little organisations offering help, which we can give them some space in the middle of town. So where we can, what we can do, basically, I think. And it's not with an aging congregation in quite a few churches. They do what they can, but it's not necessarily a lot, other than giving.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely an experience that we have in many places in Australia as well. So, yes, we are more similar than we are different, once again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next question. I'm going to put them in a bit of a different order than what we originally had them, just looking at timing and wanting us to still have time for dialogue. So the next one is, one of our members has been watching Scottish programs and noticing how communities are becoming more multicultural. I'm wondering if it's the same in Wales, and how does multiculturalism come into poverty and riches?
Wales is getting a bit more that way. It depends where you are. If you go into the capital of Cardiff, then it's always been that way. There's always been a big West Indian part of the population, and I think from an ethnic point of view, it's fairly mixed. Other places less so. Most incomers into these sort of areas where I live are from that faraway place called England. But we've had Ukrainians, quite a lot of Ukrainians, and there's quite a few other Eastern Europeans who you wouldn't probably recognise as such as you go around town, other than when they start talking. There's a few Indians. Our church hosts, or has recently started hosting another church, which was a house church, and they're now called Carmarthen Pentecostal Church. They worship on a Sunday afternoon in our place, and they minister to a small group of Indians who work, I think, mainly in the health industry, but they come from the Kerala area of southwest India, and it's in their language. And I actually was invited to their inaugural meeting last Saturday, and the service was, I think, an hour and 3/4 long in their language. And I discovered in that hour and 3/4 that there's one word which stands out, which I could understand, which was hallelujah. And that crosses all boundaries, apparently. And being an apostolic church, hallelujah came up quite a lot. So I could at least go, yes.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
But I think that's great that people like that can be included within a worshiping congregation and in their own language. That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. We have a similar experience happening in a few of the churches in Southeast Queensland. We have Sudanese congregations that worship in Dinka, and
Right.
often their service will happen after the first morning services, and they will go for 2, possibly 3, sometimes 4 hours, depending on how long the preacher wants to preach for.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful experience, but you got to be ready to, I think permission to go out and come back in as you need to is completely,
Right.
known to everybody because the services do go on so long.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is lovely. Yeah, cool. Well, speaking of language, another question was on the Welsh language and resurgence of trying to teach it in schools. And how is that in the church? Are services including some Welsh or mainly
Mhm.
English?
Yeah, well, all kids learn Welsh in school. I mean, when we came into Wales in the early 80s, our kids were 4 and 2, and the first experience of school they had was thrown in the deep end in a Welsh medium school. So it wasn't even bilingual. We were in very Welsh Wales, um, and that's not a bad thing necessarily because although when we came down South Wales, they were given the opportunity of going to an all Welsh or an English, and they decided they quite fancied the change. But it did mean that they passed their exams in Welsh without actually doing any revision whatsoever. So they were quite chuffed about that. And they both have had jobs since where Welsh has been an important part of what they do. So it's worked out for them. From the point of view of churches, the nonconformist churches generally have been either Welsh or English. Um, and the church in Wales is separated from the Anglican Church in the rest of the UK some time ago. I have no idea why, but they did.
Yep.
But they tend to most often now I think be bilingual services. They did have both English and Welsh churches around the area, but I think they're basically coming together. In Methodism, we had a Welsh synod, which is a governing body, and an English Methodist synod, and they have both come together. So we are exploring ways in which we can. I don't think it'll be so much at this end because this end of Wales has always been fairly English anyway, but in the valleys and further north, North Wales has been more Welsh. So I think they're exploring ways in which they can do things a little more bilingually. So it's a bit of a journey, which is an interesting one.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, we'll have to stay tuned, and next time we get you to come
Oh no,
and
don't ask me.
take more
Don't
from
ask me about my Welsh.
yeah, how's the Welsh going?
I'm hopeless. I'm hopeless on language. Yeah.
Oh, well, you're very good at communicating the language of the Bible in a different way for people to reflect on. So,
uh,
that's definitely something to be celebrated. Well, we did have
uh,
a few other questions still remaining from those that we had pre-compiled, but I think it might be time for us to finish the recorded section of our session so that we can go into more dialogue together. So we can sit with
mhm.
those questions a little bit further in just a moment. But for those who are watching this back at a later date, just want to give thanks for all your answers and what you have offered to us, John. So thank you once again for coming on. And yeah, we'll look forward to another visit in the future again.
Okay, no problem.
Awesome. All right, I'll stop the recording. Here we go.